Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and welcome to the long overdue review of Steven Universe. This show has quickly become one of my favorite cartoons of all time, and it really is a testament to how good a show is when it can make you feel such a wide range of emotions. It's funny, it's interesting, it's sweet, and it's really engaging. I only just started watching this show a few months ago, but I've already marathoned the whole thing, twice. The reason why I skipped it when it first came out was because the ads made it look kinda dumb, or at the very least, generic. Cartoon Network loved to spam the line about hot dogs so much you'd swear it was said 3 times in every episode of the show, when in reality it's said in something like 2 or 3 episodes tops. Most of Cartoon Network's ads suck these days, but that's a rant for a different time. Eventually my fans wore me down with comments about how great the show was, and with Adventure Time not really doing it for me anymore, I gave it a chance. Interestingly enough, the show premiered on my 20th birthday, November 4th, 2013. So for this review, I'm going to talk about many aspects of the show, and I'm going to do it all without spoilers. I might hint at things in such a way that people who have seen the show will know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to give away as little as I possibly can. Obviously, if you want to go in totally blind, just go watch the show. This will also be my only spoiler-free video about Steven Universe, so don't worry, I'll be going into way more detail in other videos later on down the line. So let's start with the main characters. They're very likable, but they each also have flaws that make them interesting. Pearl seems like the kindest and most motherly gem towards Steven, and there's a very good reason for that. She thinks a lot of human things are gross and doesn't understand them. She also has some pretty obsessive tendencies, and in some ways is very rigid and inflexible. So while she cares deeply for Steven, she really can't understand a lot of the very human things he does. She's also pretty elegant and graceful, which makes her clash with Amethyst. She's the gem that's the most like Steven. She likes to have fun and be immature, rude, and loud. She's the most human-like gem, and once again, there's a very specific reason for that. While she likes to hang out with Steven, her carelessness makes her a bad role model at times. Then there's Garnet, the quiet one. When she's focused on a mission, she often doesn't pay much attention to Steven, but when she does pay attention to him, she really listens. She can come off as creepy and strange with her stoic behavior, but as you learn more about her, she just gets cooler and cooler. She's easily my favorite gem. Each of the 3 gems gets one major thing revealed about their backstories towards the end of Season 1, as I hinted. And each reveal makes the characters' actions much more understandable, and it makes each of them more interesting in general. At first, they might seem a bit off-putting and strange, but trust me, the more the show goes on, the more you'll love all of them. Even if Pearl can be a bit too high-strung, Amethyst can be a bit too irresponsible, and Garnet can be a bit too quiet at times, in general, they are all very well-written, complex characters. You'll notice that I define the gems partially by how they interact with Steven, and that's because the show is very much from his perspective, which is cool. As we learn more about the gems, so does Steven. He's also one of the best written kid protagonists I've ever seen. He's goofy at times, but knows when things should be serious. He has a good heart and a positive nature. He's young enough to believe that everyone can be saved. Though he's rarely stupid, sometimes he dips into the kid logic, and it gets him in trouble. Also, he likes playing games, reading books, and watching movies. He's a very dynamic character with wide appeal. You can even see him slowly start to mature after the midway point of Season 1. Though I'll warn you now, his voice can be a little bit annoying at first, but after a few episodes, the actor really found a voice that sounds childlike, yet is also easy on the ears and capable of showcasing some pretty deep emotions. Then there is Steven's dad. When you first see him, he seems like kind of a deadbeat, but trust me, he isn't. He loves Steven and shows a lot of concern for him. He just doesn't seem to be the most equipped to be a parent. He's the kind of guy that has a lot of passion for things and tries really hard, but can't really catch a break. He's a goofball, just like Steven, and marches to the beat of his own drum, or guitar. There are a few episodes where we see some of his backstory, and they are easily some of the best of the series. He is most certainly my favorite character on the show, and is such a fantastic parent character that skirts the line between being fun and responsible. There's also Connie, but there isn't much I can say about her without spoiling stuff. Let's just say her and Steven have an adorable relationship, and usually whenever she shows up, you're in for a really fantastic episode. There are about 25 secondary and tertiary characters, way too many to go into here, so I'll just say that nearly all of them are well-rounded and interesting, much like the main cast. It's a good number, enough so the cast is varied, but not too many that it's too hard to keep track of them all. They are also helpfully sorted into groups, like the cool kids, or the Fryman family. The show also does a pretty decent job of showcasing all of them at one point or another, with particular attention to Sadie and Lars. Obviously, I can't say too much about the plot here without giving things away, so instead of spoiling things, let me just tell you about the basic structure of some of these episodes. The show has a little bit of the magic element of the week thing going on, and by that I mean some episodes follow the structure of Steven finds X magical object or realizes he has Y magical power, and hijinks ensue while he misuses or tries to control it. Even though tons of shows do this, Steven Universe strays away from a lot of the cliches that other shows are riddled with, and usually presents its concepts in a unique and interesting way. Where other shows would take some of these concepts and just play them for laughs and be done with it, this show plays them for laughs and takes them to really dark, creepy, and interesting places. Plus, this sort of story doesn't crop up too often, so it avoids falling into a dull formula. Also, a lot of episodes feature the gems fighting these monsters and traveling through colorful places to do it. But what I find interesting is that that's rarely the actual focus of an episode. Usually these episodes are about something else entirely that plays out while they are hunting these monsters and going on adventures. For example, an episode that involves a pretty standard fetch quest is about two characters learning how to get along better. In this way, the show works on two levels. It can appeal to those who like action and fantasy, but also to those who like character-driven stories that feature very real-world problems about things like growing up, accepting responsibility, or getting along with people who are very different from you. Sometimes it does this through magical allegory, and sometimes it just presents real-world issues with minimal magic involved. As far as the comedy, this show really knows how to make me laugh. See, the comedy is not at all at the forefront of the show, and that's what makes it so strong. In a show like SpongeBob, you're constantly expecting punchlines because that's the kind of show it is. Jokes work way better when you aren't expecting them. Steven Universe draws you in with an interesting story and lovable characters, and then BAM! Socks you with a joke when you aren't expecting it. It's fantastic. The fact that this show did a crossover with Uncle Grandpa just shows that the team has an amazing sense of humor. And although the show can be pretty epic and dramatic at times, it always knows when to throw a good punchline at you and soften the mood with some comic relief. One of the things I like most about this show is that you learn something new about the gems in nearly every episode. You learn stuff about their powers, about their backstories, about the monsters they fight. Little bits of information are slowly dripping in all the time. It's a great way to keep audiences hooked and interested. And that's why I'm being vague here, and I urge you not to look up any information on the show before watching it. The show will explain a lot as it goes on in really clever ways, so please, just ignore the wiki until you're all caught up with the episodes. As I mentioned earlier, each gem gets something big revealed about them towards the end of Season 1. What makes these reveals so awesome is that they drop many hints in previous episodes, so many that some fans were able to correctly guess some major twists. The continuity in the show is very strong. Things will get foreshadowed and called back to all the time. There's even a later Season 1 episode that reveals an earlier episode was not at all what it seemed like. Even beyond major callbacks, sometimes Steven will just casually mention something from a previous episode. It's not necessary, but it's a nice touch, and it really makes the world of the show feel that much more realistic. Speaking of little touches, the show throws in a ton of references to anime and video games. Steven has an N64 and later a GameCube in his bedroom. The game cases even look exactly like Animal Crossing and Wind Waker. There's an episode where he has a Sailor Moon manga in the background in his room, and there's an episode that's a straight up anime parody, although personally I find it to be one of the weaker episodes. Oh, and there's also a DuckTales reference that's actually subtle, and I haven't even mentioned the songs yet. The best episodes of this show feature really passionate songs sung by the main cast and carefully interwoven into the story. These songs are sung with great emotion and are some of the best things about the show. Seriously, I've listened to them over and over again online. If you like the songs in Adventure Time, you'll love these. Not surprisingly though, because Rebecca Sugar wrote the best songs on Adventure Time, and she, well, basically created this entire show and the songs within. She really has a gift for writing beautiful songs. If I'm not doing a good enough job convincing you to watch this show and you don't mind a few out-of-context spoilers, go listen to Strong in the Real Way or Be Whoever You Are. Those songs should at least pique your interest. So I've done my gushing, now it's time to be a little more critical. Firstly, the show isn't going to appeal to everyone. To get the most out of it, you really need to pay attention and watch every episode. It's not really the kind of show that caters to casual viewers. It's not that you can't casually enjoy it, but it seems to be made more for obsessive binge watchers. It's also a show that loves building atmosphere, and that means a lot of quieter moments that not all younger viewers will enjoy. I don't actually think this is a bad thing, just something you might want to be aware of before going in. It's like a complicated competitive video game. Not everyone wants to put the time in to learn it, but those who do love it and obsess over it. Secondly, The animation is a little wonky for the first few episodes. They tighten it up pretty quickly, so that's good. And also, like I said, Steven's voice in the beginning takes a few episodes to smoothen out. And lastly, there are a few characters that I am not crazy about. Ronaldo, the resident conspiracy nut, is kind of hit or miss. Sometimes he's funny, other times you want to just smack him and tell him to get a hold of himself. Also, the mayor seems a bit on the cliche side. He's not a terrible character, but he's just not that interesting, at least as of the middle of season 2. There are of course other problems, as like anything else it's not perfect, but all my other complaints are relatively small and are with individual episodes and not with the show overall. I'll save my criticism of those for other videos where I can get more spoilery. And now I'd just like to take a minute and talk about how awesome the creator Rebecca Sugar is. She did an AMA on Reddit a while back, and just reading what she has to say really explains why Stephen Yu is so great. I'll go over a few interesting things she said here, and the full transcription of the AMA is in the description. I might also make another video entirely about the AMA, because really it's filled with a lot of interesting stuff about her methodology in cartooning. When creating the show, what was one thing you didn't want to happen with it? I didn't want the show to ever be mean, sarcastic, or ironic. I wanted it to feel good. I love that she values this show just feeling good above all else. Some shows have a habit of making its characters unnecessarily nasty and not for any good plot reason. It's great that she wants to avoid that. What inspires you to teach which lessons and which gems or supporting characters to help convey them to Steven or the others? I try to think of what I needed to hear when I was a certain age, and cartoons were my escape. Cartoons are great for that. I want to hide some legit good info in there for the kids who are looking for that escape. This makes a lot of sense as well. She's a big fan of cartoons, so naturally she knows what us dorks who are also big cartoon fans want to see. How did you come up with the idea for Steven Universe? I came up with Steven because I wanted to mix the feeling of hanging out with my brother, the real Steven, with the kind of stuff we were watching and games we were playing. Fantasy stuff. I put it all together in one thing that felt like our childhood. Throughout various parts of the AMA, she also admits to loving Zelda, Dragon Ball, Symbionic Titan, One Piece, Kirby, Yoshi's Island, and a ton of other awesomely nerdy stuff. Plus, she loves fan shipping and fan art and all that stuff. She really gets what it's like to be a fan, and it seems like she loves everyone online for going nuts about her show. I actually had a little bit of a realization when writing this script. Rebecca is only 7 years older than me. We're approaching a time when cartoons are made by the same people that grew up with them in the 90s and early 2000s, and that's pretty amazing. And to close this out, I'll leave you with her advice to anyone aspiring to get into the industry. I would say make a lot of comics and short films. Make projects you can finish on your own instead of pitches. Do it for yourself and finish your projects 100%. Show people what you're about. The pitches can come later, and you'll already have lots of finished work under your belt. And you'll really know yourself as an artist and writer, which is the most important thing. You'll realize what you want to do, the stories you keep coming back to, especially if you do lots of different kinds of things, then you'll see the patterns. Man, I always really like doing this. Even when I'm trying to do something else, I come back to this. You'll know yourself, but people will start knowing you too, through your work. You might not even have to go to them to pitch. They'll come to you, wanting what you already do. She's so right on this, guys. There are a million people out there with ideas, but very rare is the person who invests enough blood, sweat, and tears to get it done. Go watch Steven Universe. PIEGUYRULZ, out.